O'clock. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first guest for the morning. And that, of course, is Dr. Qureisha Suleiman. She is at the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences, postdoc researcher at the University of Pretoria, Department of Political Sciences. Gives me great pleasure to be chatting with her this morning. And of course, we're going to be talking about the genocide on the Palestinian people. I'm actually quite horrified. I didn't think that it was going to be dragging on this long. I guess I was being very naive. And it also seems as if the Israelis, the occupiers, illegal occupiers, are absolutely intent in causing as much damage as they possibly can to create so much of pressure on innocent Palestinian men, women, and children. The intention is to get them out of Palestine, to push them into either the Sinai Desert or get Egypt and other countries to take them in as refugees. So we're going to try and unpack all of that. Dr. Qureisha Suleiman, Salaam alaikum to you. Welcome to the program. Wonderful to have you on the show this morning.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah for inviting me.
So, gosh, where do we even start with this genocide and the fact that this madness still seems to be continuing, much at the behest of obviously the Western governments, particularly the UK and the US. We've heard lots of stories. Look, I mean, kudos to the South African government, to the ANC party for taking this situation to the ICJ. But it seems as if the Western governments, UK and the US, don't seem phased by this action at all because uh, I guess that further to this, we've been hearing other people, other political parties, other governments suggesting that they're now going to open up cases of war crimes against individuals within the Israeli government. Your thoughts, Goresha?
Well, Julie, it's such a deep context, and if I can put it briefly, this is an antagonism basically, despite what they say. It is an antagonism, firstly, against Islam, a deep-seated hatred for Islam and a fear of Islam. But secondly, also, it is driven by a madness, an obsession with wealth. So for the Israelis and for the American political elite and Europeans, the many European countries who are still complicit in the genocide, all of this is about firstly, maintaining the right of superiority of the white race. Secondly, it is about ensuring the development and progress of the white race. And thirdly, it is about not admitting the faults and mistakes of the past, but not only that, the general suicidal, not suicidal, but genocidal, violent nature of the white race. So that is why you see that in what is happening in Gaza, yes, everybody, I think the world over, we feel like we're living in a dystopian state, that to believe that this thing is being televised in front of our eyes, it's coming to our phones, and everybody seems as if they are paralyzed. But it's not really that they are paralyzed. It's just that many of the states, especially now here, I'm referring to Muslim majority country states and the global south, have been intentionally, firstly, impoverished intellectually, militarily, psychologically, politically. That is through years of colonization. In South Africa, the case has been extended through apartheid. Coups throughout the centuries, with regime changes in the name of democracy, etc., which have weakened governments the world over in order to ensure the domination of the white race. So, with regards Gaza, it is firstly, and Palestine, it is a settler colonial project that is happening in Palestine. So, automatically, this entire case cannot be extradited from its racist underpinnings. You need to remember that. That is the context. So, it's a settler colonial project. that it seeks to further its own ambitions and its own, what shall I say, agendas. And it is backed by, that's why you see settler colonial states rallying so strongly behind Israel, Australia, Canada. Well, Germany is not a settler colonial state, but it is a colonizer, and also it has been responsible for genocides in Africa, the first genocide in Namibia, and then, of
Mm,
course, the Holocaust. So these are all the things, and that's why. And then, of course, we know about the Ben Gurion project and the gas fields, which have been found off the coast of Gaza. And so there's a strong desire for material benefit, although as if they're not benefiting enough. They've stolen so many resources from the Palestinians. But now this is the new project, and we can link it to what has happened in Egypt. So you know that for the longest time that Egypt has been a puppet of the US, the military, etc., have all benefited financially significantly from the IMF, and have been dominated and controlled by the US. But there has been a shift. The shift, although we can't say speak really much good about Sisi, but there has been a shift ever since the alignment with BRICS. And the fact that the IMF has, well, the plan was that the IMF would give Egypt money and in return would capture resources from Egypt for further control, and you would manage that. Specifically, I think the Suez Canal. The fact that it didn't work out, the alternate project was the Ben Gurion project, the Ben Gurion Canal project, which would then
mm.
bypass through Gaza. And so we have to get rid of Egypt. We have to strangle Egypt. We have to get full control of Gaza. And the white racist settler states had to create their own. Because you must remember, this is why this is so important, is because Allah is incredible in His planning. If you look at all the major waterways in the world, they basically controlled or in the pathways of Muslim majority countries. And so, in order to get a major waterway, which is would bypass the Suez Canal, would be to build this Ben Gurion project. And now, because they haven't, US hasn't been able to take control of Egypt the way they anticipated, and Egypt is now in the ambit of the BRICS alliance, which is under basically the Russian and the Chinese umbrella. They have to push forward, and the European states also are pushing forward for this, especially since Ukraine and the fact that the gas has been strangled. So all of this is linked just to that, to the development of the white race, the superiority of the white race, and the enhancement and furthering of the white race. So for them to kill black people, to kill Muslim people, to kill anybody who's anything but a white European Anglo-Saxon is nothing. It's a joke. It's like they're going out and clay pigeon shooting. That's the bottom line. That is how you need to understand the psyche of these states in the international world system.
So, Croatia, you've raised a lot of very, very important issues there. We do know that a little while ago, Israel offered large sums of money to Egypt to take in as many Palestinian refugees as they possibly could. There was also talk that they promised the Palestinian people a tent city with shelter, etc., interim tent city in the Sinai Desert. And we do know that had the Palestinians gone to that part of the area, there was just absolutely no coming back for them as far as their homeland is concerned, their homeland being Palestine, which is obviously illegally occupied currently by the Israelis. Those plans seems to have fallen by the wayside, or do you think that Sisi will still further collude with the Israelis, obviously in exchange for vast sums of money, to take the Palestinians into Egypt, to give them shelter in Egypt so that the Israelis can get rid of the Palestinians for once and for all from Palestine, and then go ahead with their master plan, which is a very big plan, of course.
So, firstly, I want to say Bismillah and Inshallah, no. But Pharaoh occupied that land for a very long time. But no, let's be positive and think positive. And Allah has made these changes for a very specific reason. The Egyptians, no matter what they are, rooted in their psyche and in the historical understanding, the Nakba is a very sensitive issue. And like that, for all the Arabs in the region. So for them to perpetuate or to facilitate for a second Nakba, I find it hard to believe. But you know what? We're living in such a in such a mad world that it's hard to call anything. But I'm going on my hunches to say that since it has joined BRICS, it is certainly taking instruction and guidelines and direction from BRICS plus countries, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So there's a lot of undercurrent that is happening there. And if you look at the way in which the Israelis have planned this whole thing, it is as if they literally, and the way in which the bombing is happening, if you look at the satellite images of the bombing, it is as if they're preparing the pathway for the building of the Ben Gurion canal project. If you look at those satellite images, and
Mm.
and what the project initially had indicated, that you need to demolish and create, and you need to use this kind of explosives, etc. That's all what they've been using. They're following that blueprint. So they're planning for this. But perhaps, inshallah, not perhaps, it is inshallah that Allah's plan is greater. And that the Arabs in the region are not going to allow this, because for the simple reason is that should they allow this, firstly, strategically, they become compromised, because the Suez Canal then becomes compromised, okay? Egypt's entire revenue can
Mm.
be destroyed in terms, and in one of the most significant contributors to the Egyptian revenue is the Suez Canal as a shipping route.
Mm.
Secondly, it creates access, unfettered access for Western powers, these white supremacist states, to continuously destabilize the Middle East. So it will affect the development of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, Oman, Iran, Iraq, Qatar. All of these states are going to be affected by this. So it is not in their national interest to make sure, to allow this to happen. And so together they can come together and put significant pressure on Egypt, or also offer alternates to Egypt to prevent this from happening. What we have to realize is at the end of the day, there is going to be a significant loss of life on the Palestinian part. It's going to continue until not the Arab states do something, but the Europeans do something. So one can
Mm.
only hope that they have some measure of humanity in them, the majority of them. We know there's quite a few, not quite a few, but there's a few who've been standing with the Palestinians, who've been raising their voices from the start, like Belgium, Spain, Ireland. But we need more than that, and we need them to be more vociferous. Then you need states who have been strong supporters of Israel to turn on Israel. And together to come to this point, as where South Africa came to that breaking point where there were sanctions, the seizing of military weapons, etc. But also perhaps, which is the new campaign we see, that is invoke Article 6, is to expel the US from the UN. And not only US, I would think, but that Israel also from the UN. And at that point, then we can have some greater consolidation. As far as I see it, um, the Palestinians themselves are not going to go into the Sinai, because they know what that means exactly, right? That's just extending their genocide, right?
Mm.
They would rather die with a bomb than die a slow death in the Sinai. The Egypt, I don't think is going to allow it, and neither are the Arab states, because you can see that they've been working very hard, Algeria included, round the clock to end this particular atrocity, the genocide of all crimes, genocide, which is the crime of all crimes. Um, and hopefully, what we can then see is that the ultimate result of all of this is the dismantling of the Zionist state, the apartheid state, and the dismantling of the occupation. Because the point we are in at right now, just a temporary ceasefire or a ceasefire is not good enough. It has to come with the dismantling of the Zionist apartheid state and the end to occupation.
Okay, Croatia, I have lots more questions and statements to put forward regarding this discussion. Regarding this discussion, can I just ask you to please close your phone mic, because it's creating a bit of disturbance on our side. Let us go for a quick ad break, and we'll come right back to you. We need to talk about the water wars, which has been predicted a long time ago. Do you see this situation probably impacting on the water wars going forward? We've been told that in the future, that's what countries are going to be fighting about. We also need to look at the issue regarding the genocide case against Israel in The Hague. How much of impact is that having? Do we as South Africans have a really strong case? Are we hoping something's going to come out of this? What is that outcome that we're hoping for? Because from the time this case has gone to court, it seems as if the occupiers have just been absolutely ruthless and relentless in their genocide on the Palestinian people. So I'm going to leave you with that. We'll get back to you right after the ad break and you can respond to me, please.
This is Salam Media. Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
I am deeply, deeply disturbed at this forum that is going to happen and that South Africa is going to host it. I'm deeply disturbed that our government cannot make the distinction between what one might call normal circumstances and extraordinary circumstances. I do not know what is more extraordinary in our world right now than the genocidal war that is continuing and that is ratcheting up itself every single day.
Dr. Alan Busak, he's an anti-apartheid activist.
This is Salam Media.
Send food and send kindness to those who have lost their homes and have been plunged into poverty. For those who are a meal away from starvation, a food parcel means an entire family can eat this Ramadan. That's the power of food. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Our brothers and sisters in Palestine are enduring unimaginable hardships. Ashraful Aid teams are on the ground delivering crucial aid to those in need. But we can't do it alone. Palestine is suffering and they need your help. Your support can make a world of difference. Visit www.ashrafulaid.org today and donate to bring hope, relief, and healing to those who are in need.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
8:30 exactly. My guest is Dr. Qureisha Suleiman. She is at the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences, postdoc researcher at the University of Pretoria, Department of Political Sciences. We are talking about the genocide on the Palestinian people by the illegal occupiers, and that, of course, is the Israelis. Lots that we've covered thus far. We are looking at the issue around water wars, the impact on the Middle East. What about no support from Palestine's neighbors? We've been hearing that the other Arab nations have let Palestine down, but I guess it's more complex than just on the surface. Let's look at that as well. And of course, our hopes as South Africans for the outcomes of the ICJ case. We know it's not going to happen overnight, but what are we hoping for? Back to you, Dr. Qureisha Suleiman. Assalamu alaikum. And your response to all of those questions and statements.
Okay, so with regards that, Palestine feels like it has been let down by its neighbors. Yes, this is a sentiment that we as the Ummah have been carrying this for the longest of time. But the reality is that we have been, well, sadly, the Ummah has been maintained and managed by very poor leaders of the past. These poor leaders, of course, have been totally, enmeshed in their obsession with modernization and progress, and as a result, they have succumbed to Western ideas, giving up on the values of Islam, Islamic identity, Islamic trade, and the building of civilizations. This has cost the Ummah tremendously. Firstly, because of the bad decisions. The bad decisions being, for example, fixing Arab currencies to the dollar. Secondly, trading their oil and their resources with the dollar in terms of the dollar, so fixing it according to the petrodollar, and then seeking assurances from the US to continuously maintain their control over their states. In many instances, these were leaders who were not really entirely legitimate and not really fully recognized by their populations. So to secure themselves, they increased in their trade in weapons, etc., and as a result, deposited large sums of money of theirs into US banks. Basically speaking, they're completely hamstrung. They're hamstrung to make a move right or left, because should they do anything that the US does not approve of, and it's Zionist state, of course, so the US is the lapdog of the Zionist state. So
Mm.
should any of these two not be pleased with any action by a particular Arab state, it is possible that they will go the way of firstly labeling them as terrorists, secondly saying that they are a threat to world peace, that they're not interested in the negotiating process. You know that whole long story, Julie,
Mm,
that
mm.
they've been singing for years, right? And then they can impose sanctions on Arab states, or they can freeze the assets of Arab states that are so tied into the Western banking system. So that's where the Arabs are hamstrung. But there is a new generation of Arab leaders, the younger ones. And I know we're seeing a lot of negative propaganda, but we're not seeing what needs to be seen, and
Mm.
that is seeking deeper.
Mhm.
So what we see is the anti-Islam behavior, but we're not seeing the political moves. So you have MBZ, MBS, and you have Tamim bin Hamad in Qatar, and then you have the younger prince in Jordan as well. I forget his name. But all of these are younger blood. And you can see that they have been studying the Middle East process for a long time, and they have made a shift. And that shift is we don't want war. We want development, we want economic progress, we want stability in the Middle East, and enough of war. But to come to this point and to oust the US as a hegemon and give greater value to the BRICS partners, and to create a alternate multipolar world where the BRICS alliance becomes this alternate force, it requires strategic maneuvering, and it doesn't happen overnight. And this is where I can see the things that they are doing, and it makes sense to me. And
Mm.
let me just simply, for example, say they did something which the US did not like, and Israel did not like. Do you think, let's ask this question simply to all the listeners, do you think that they would hesitate from bombing an Arab state, another Arab state? They're dying to go into Iran. They're dying to bomb Syria and Lebanon. They're dying to kill more Muslims. Do you think they would hesitate
Well,
to bomb?
Quraisha, let me just come in here. Let me just come in here. Look what's happening in Yemen, one of the very poor
That's
countries
exactly
in the Middle East. And on the pretext of the fact that Yemen is supporting the Palestinian people, and they are doing everything they can in their limited powers in trying to not give safe passage, or not give passage to Israeli tankers and Western tankers taking arms and supplies to Israel. So look what they're doing to this poor little
exactly.
country.
Exactly, and not on the pretext. It is directly because
Mhm.
you are stopping the genocide. You are preventing us, we who are the bosses. When we tell you something, you have to say in the South African language, "Ya boss." If you don't say "Ya boss," then we're coming for you. And that's exactly how these bullies and these gangsters operate in the international system of state. So the Arab leaders have fully now, this younger generation, have grasped onto this reality. I mean, if you look at 1992, Netanyahu spoke in an interview. And at that time, he already said that the Muslim terrorists, sorry, it was 1996, where he wrote a book. He wrote a book about the Middle East. And he said that 1995, and he said if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, then the next thing you will see is the militant Islamists bringing down the World Trade Center. Now, he said this in 1995, right?
Mm,
How did he
mm,
know that the World Trade Center would be attacked? And 6 years
absolutely.
later, the World Trade Center came down. Then, in an interview in 1982 with the US Congress, he said that you need to knock out the Soviet Union and the PLO, and international terrorism would collapse. What happened? The Soviet Union broke down, it collapsed.
Mm,
In
mm,
2002, he spoke about Saddam's regime and he spoke about Iran, and he said you need to knock them out and there will be greater peace. I mean, just listen to his words, right? Iran and Iraq. What
mm.
happened? And then later on, he included Libya. And so what we have now, we have Iraq, Saddam is gone, Gaddafi is gone, the PLO is gone, it's now the PA, so because Arafat is gone, and you have the Soviet Union is broken down. And he's now singing the song for Iran. And they've decimated and destroyed Yemen, and they have broken completely, weakened Egypt. Do you honestly think that they're going to stop with
Abs-
Gaza? You know,
Absolutely not.
or
Absolutely not.
killing any other or killing any other Arabs who disagree with them. That's why I
Hmm.
said right at the start, we need to understand the psyche of these nations. And so to blame the young Arab leaders is wrong. We have to look at what they're doing behind the scenes, and that is building international coalition. The only way to stop them is the route that South Africa and BRICS has taken, is to re-invoke and demand international law to be the law which governs the international system of states.
So, to wrap up then, Quretia, let's talk about our expectations as South Africans, as very proud South Africans, regarding the outcomes of the ICJ case. And we do know that this is going to take a long time. It's not an overnight decision and an overnight fix and overnight outcomes. There's going to be a lot of legal deliberations before we can hear of an outcome, and then even to implement it, and even for Israel, inshallah, it comes to that, to abide by the outcomes. I'm not even sure if they will abide by it, because look what they've done with the with the wall. I mean, the wall is still standing there, dividing the country into, the apartheid wall in Israel, separating Israel from Palestine. So I think they, even though we're hoping for positive outcomes and we're very proud about the stance South Africa has taken, I kind of wonder: is it going to be? Is it going to be respected? Is it going to be upheld? Is it going to be even, looked at as far as Israel and Western countries are concerned?
So don't be despondent, because there's only good that come from good. And the fact that South Africa did this to say enough of this oppression, enough of this evil, that on its own is a very good and positive step. Secondly, South Africa did not simply do this on its own altogether. It had the full backing of BRICS plus countries, okay? So
Hmm.
it has definitely taken support, advice, encouragement, and maybe a lot of shared common values and ideas and resources from the BRICS plus countries, because they're all speaking in the same tune. You can see how they're working this momentum, and I call it a waltz. How this diplomatic waltz, is evolving
Mm.
to shake up the world order and to move it away from a rules-based order, which is, the gangsters, US, saying when we say something, that is the rule, and so when we enforce it, we are enforcing the rules-based order. They're saying enough of this bullying. The world is moving towards international law. So yes, whether Israel is going to respect or not, I honestly believe that they don't want to, that they won't. But like I said, if European states come together and say enough of this, and especially allies of Israel start exerting pressure on Israel to say enough of this, then it is likely that we will see some kind of a change. But the bottom line is that the unipolar order of the world has to change. The UN has to reform, not even reform, but there has to be a rehabilitation of the UN. And global South states, which constitute the majority of states in the world today, have to consolidate themselves towards a common shifting the momentum away from the violence of white settler colonial states. And only then will we be able to see a lasting outcome. But it's happening, Julie. It's already happening. You can see how after Brazil's Lula made those comments,
Yep.
he's been, getting support from Latin America. And already he's building consensus on that side. The Russians are building consensus with their allies. The Chinese are building consensus with their allies. South Africa is building allies within the consensus within the AU and in Africa. And then Arab states are already aligned because you have the Organization of Islamic countries and Arab League are already 100% aligned, and they're also representing Palestine at the ICJ, the new case for the advisory opinion on the legal status of Palestine. So good can only come from good, and we have to applaud South Africa for being brave enough, and especially Minister Pandor, who's ethical and dedicated to this particular case. And then she's so articulate in the way she tackles the bullies on the international system, those who come and try and threaten her or pass nasty comments and remarks about her. And their habit is perpetually this: shoot the messenger because we don't like the message. So their remarks are always insulting, like Gareth Cliff, insults the dressing of the minister. You can't argue with the argument or with the ethical standpoint, so you insult the minister or you insult black people, etc., etc. The same as the Zionist federations, the rabbis who call black people animals. It's the same tactic that's perpetuating. But we as South Africans must be proud. We must support our government, and most important, make sure you don't vote DA, Action SA, all of those parties coming election. Be very careful.
Okay, that's all we have time for, Croatia. I need a full hour with you. There's so much to unpack. Inshallah, we'll talk again sometime soon. Don't even mention Gareth Cliff. He is the Mampara of the year. Absolute Mampara. He suffers from verbal diarrhea, and people who take him seriously, oh my God, you need to wonder who they are, where they come from, which rock did they crawl out from under, if people take someone like him seriously. But listen, it's been great chatting with you. We've had some wonderful comments from someone on Facebook, Fazila Sayed. She's saying, Alhamdulillah, Allah trumps over evil. Allah loves peace, goodness, and Shaitan loves anarchy. Alhamdulillah, I think she seems to have enjoyed this discussion. I'm sure it's given her hope as much as it's given me. And thank you indeed, Fazila, for your comments. Thank you, Dr. Qureisha Suleiman. You with the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences, postdoc researcher at the University of Pretoria, Department of Political Sciences. I do look forward to chatting with you again sometime in the future. Love your thinking, your insights, and just for us to kind of change our mindsets ever so slightly and start taking a more positive stance. You go well. I'll accept all of your efforts. Till the next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah and jazakallah khair once again for the opportunity.
It is exactly 8:44 a.m. News and Views on Salam Media. Standing by is our next guest, but I've just lost his information from the screen. I need to look for it. Oh, there we go. That, of course, is Dr. Ngama Mtimka. He is a political analyst, and we are going to be talking about the ANC's manifesto. Hey, guys, the elections are around the corner. Let's wake up. Let's understand who's promising what and who is on the right side of history, very particularly regarding the Palestinian situation. Please stay with us.